On February 3, 1968, two of the Vietnam People's Army Air Force top pilots, Pham Ngan and Nguyen took off in MiG-21s on their fourth interception mission of the day, a radar-detected pair of enemy aircraft, most likely light bombers. However, as the duo approached the Laotian border, MiG-21 pilot Ngan thought he spotted an EB-66 ECM aircraft. A closer look revealed a much more valuable target: two Convair F-102 Delta Daggers, the world's first supersonic all-weather jet interceptor. Also, the United States Air Force's first operational Delta Wing aircraft, the Delta Dagger had been wreaking havoc on Vietnam for nearly 6 years as one of America's first deployed aircraft models to the area. That day, the Daggers were piloted by Major A.L. Lomax as the flight leader, with First Lieutenant Wallace Wiggins as his wingman. Sensing the imminent threat, the leader reacted with the precision of a seasoned warrior and tried to unleash the fury of 3 of his missiles. But when every missile missed its mark, the Americans were becoming an easy target. With this, seizing the moment, and about to become the first ever North Vietnam pilot to fire at the iconic Convair Delta Dagger directly, Ngan sneakily maneuvered into the blind spot behind Wiggins and aimed. With the appearance of Tupolev Tu-4s, reverse-engineered Boeing B-29 Superfortresses, and the development of the atomic weapon, which removed the natural barrier protection of the vast oceans, the newly formed United States Air Force had its first major challenge: a potential strategic bombing threat from the Soviet Union. As such, in 1948, the service launched a priority competition for the 1954 Ultimate Interceptor, named after the year it was supposed to enter service. The request for a proposal for the airframe attracted responses from different manufacturers, but it was Convair's submission that attracted the service's attention. The manufacturer, leveraging prior research, proposed a radical design featuring a delta wing and internal weapons bay to minimize drag that could reach extreme speeds of at least Mach 1. In November 1951, Convair's design, the clear frontrunner from the beginning, was authorized to proceed. The F-102, initially codenamed Secret Project MX-1554 and Dragonfly, introduced a groundbreaking approach by integrating radar and fire control systems with advanced guided missiles. However, when initial wind tunnel tests showed the original F-102 design wouldn't reach its required speed, this meant the model needed a significant redesign. The solution was Richard Whitcomb's area rule, which advised shaping the aircraft to have a narrower waist, much like a Coke bottle, to reduce air resistance. This significant change drastically reduced drag, allowing the aircraft to meet its speed goals. While quite an innovative concept back then, the area rule remains a fundamental principle in aerodynamic design to this day. Due to its advanced construction, the initial YF-102 prototype couldn't incorporate these changes, and when the first one flew in October 1953, it quickly proved its faults when it was lost in a crash. Thankfully, subsequent models incorporating the modifications significantly improved performance, reaching Mach 1 in December 1954. As such, Air Force officials, now confident in the project, greenlit the production of the Convair F-102 Delta Dagger. A single-seat interceptor aircraft, characterized by its distinctive delta wing configuration and an all-metal body, the F-102 was more universally known as the Deuce. The F-102 was groundbreaking in many ways. It was the first delta wing combat jet and the first all-weather interceptor that could fly at supersonic speeds in level flight. Unique for its time, it was designed from the start to be equipped entirely with missiles, marking it as the first fighter built around an all-missile armament concept. With the ability to reach speeds up to Mach 1.25 at high altitudes, a maximum range of 1,350 miles, and an operational ceiling of up to 53,000 feet, this model came equipped with potent AIM-4 Falcon air-to-air missiles and unguided rockets. These armaments were stored in an internal weapons bay, minimizing drag and enhancing the aircraft's aerodynamic efficiency. In April 1956, the 327th Fighter Interceptor Squadron, based at George Air Force Base in California, became the first to receive the F-102 Delta Dagger. Production only increased the following year, and at the peak of deployment as the decade neared its end, F-102s equipped over 25 squadrons. The 327th was moved to Thule Air Base in Greenland in June 1958. As the U.S. Air Force's northernmost base, it allowed the interception of Soviet aircraft from the continental United States. Soon, Other overseas units nearby, like the 57th Fighter Interceptor Squadron, based in Iceland, also adopted the type in the interceptor role. Typical interceptions included Soviet long-range reconnaissance flights, bomber patrols over the Atlantic Ocean, and various aircraft flying to and from Cuba. However, while the Convair Delta Dagger was initially designed as an air defense fighter, the type would soon be thrust into a conflict that would test the limits of its adaptability. On March 19, 1962, following reports of low-flying unidentified aircraft over the central highland region of South Vietnam, President Ngo Phin Diem sought the help of the United States. With this, 4 F-102s from Clark Air Base were transferred to Tan Son Nhut. After flying 21 sorties, however, when all traces of enemy air activity ceased, the unit was stood down. But this was only the beginning of a nearly 8-year-long saga of the F-102's presence in Southeast Asia. After the Gulf of Tonkin incident in the summer of 1964, which significantly escalated U.S. military involvement, the Delta Dagger was deployed again to Vietnam and assigned to bases in Bangkok, Tan Son Nhut, and Da Nang. With this, Clark Air Base's 509th Fighter Interceptor Squadron became the first full squadron in the area. These deployments necessitated constant alert status for the aircraft and crews, with pilots working upwards of 128 hours a week, significantly straining resources and personnel. The challenges led to innovative solutions to maintain operational readiness without regular returns to Clark Air Base, and soon, the crews became good at getting airborne in less than 3 minutes. From there, training intensified as pilots adapted to the unique demands of combat in Vietnam, focusing on night, low-altitude interceptions against slow-moving targets, the complete opposite of the F-102's high-speed design. These operations were crucial for countering North Vietnamese supply missions, and their ordnance load was also tailored depending on the day's needs, incorporating AIM-26B Falcon and AIM-4C air-to-air missiles alongside rockets, giving the F-102 a greater capacity for knocking down anything that dared to come close to it. Amid American troop presence escalation, as the Delta Dagger's operational demands grew, the Vietnam People's Air Force, previously outmatched, sought to challenge their supremacy by embracing the iconic Soviet-crafted MiG-21. Boasting superior speed, enhanced maneuverability, and being equipped with radar-guided missiles, this combination of attributes allowed the enemy a more effective fighting platform and greater capacity to elude and counter U.S. aircraft, including the Convair F-102. As the United States continued introducing more ground combat units and launched sustained bombing campaigns like Operation Rolling Thunder, the F-102 was increasingly called upon to perform an ever-widening variety of missions beyond simple air interception. One of the most important roles was the Arc-like missions, escorting reconnaissance and bombing missions and safeguarding B-52 bombers. This was the first time in history that the B-52, originally a nuclear deterrent weapon, was used in direct support of ground combat operations. When these were adapted to carry conventional ordnance, the bombers became powerful destruction platforms, dropping tens of thousands of pounds of bombs on enemy positions, taking down supply lines, base camps, and other strategic objectives in North and South Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. By early 1966, other missions included escorting CH-46 helicopters under the threat of MiG engagement in North Vietnam. The most unique mission was also the most unexpected. Because the F-102 was the only aircraft equipped with AIM-4Ds, infrared missiles, and heat-seeking missiles, they were tasked with picking up the heat from Viet Cong campfires in the jungle and other similar guerrilla movements. According to Major Bill Winkler, quote, "From altitude at night, they were locked onto the heat signal and fired. The results were never confirmed, but it must have caused quite a stir, and you can imagine enemy troops gathered around a campfire after a long day's trek, and suddenly there's an explosion in their midst." In these heat-seeking missions, the F-102s also went after trucks, aircraft, and helicopters. Also, they flew above the Ho Chi Minh trails, causing mass disruption with an element of psychological surprise. While the Convair F-102 force's years in Vietnam were well spent, the risks in such a volatile land were significant. A total of 14 aircraft were lost in the conflict, with the majority due to ground fire and accidents. But only one Dagger was lost to aerial combat. On February 3, 1968, beneath the sweltering Vietnamese sun, Major A.L. Lomax, a seasoned pilot with instincts honed by countless sorties, led a two-dagger formation with First Lieutenant Wallace Wiggins as his wingman. That day, as the duo flew their sleek planes, soaring high above the dense jungle canopy, to escort a Douglas EB-66 destroyer light bomber at 36,000 feet, safeguarding it from each and every potential predator that stalked the skies near the North Vietnam-Laotian border at Sam Nua. Unbeknownst to them, two pilots from the Vietnam People's Air Force 921st, Pham Ngan and Nguyen, the latter of whom would later become the war's top ace with 9 victories, were preparing for their 4th interception mission of the day. They aimed to locate a pair of enemy aircraft detected on radar. As their engines roared to life, the North Vietnamese pilots scoured the skies near the Laotian border until they came face to face with the real threat, the American F-102s. With this, a lethal dance commenced. Lomax, sensing the immediate threat, reacted with the precision of a seasoned warrior, unleashing the fury of 3 of his AIM-4D Falcons in a matter of seconds. Yet every missile missed its mark. Seizing the moment, Ngan maneuvered into the blind spot behind Wiggins' aircraft, and with a press of a button, launched an R-3S missile. When it stayed stubbornly on its launch rail, the pilot launched the second weapon only seconds later. As the enemy missile screamed through the sky, it hit the F-102A's tail. Van Koch fired a missile too, but it failed to guide correctly. The MiG-21s were immediately ordered to break off the engagement and return to base. Just as the enemy planes disappeared into the air, Wiggins reported a problem with his aircraft. Upon Lomax's inspection, he went cold when he saw the body of the unexploded missile protruding from his partner's Deuce's rear fuselage. But while Lomax attempted to locate the MiGs again with his heart racing and aching for revenge, he glanced back just in time to see his wingman's aircraft begin its fatal descent, flames engulfing the once majestic bird of war with no ejection attempt. Lomax, alone now, faced the vast, indifferent expanse without his partner and returned to base, ready to tell the story of the only Convair F-102 shot down in combat. In a letter written by Lieutenant General Francis Gideon, Commanding General of the 13th Air Force during the Vietnam War, he spoke of the Convair Delta Dagger, one of the first aircraft to be sent to the conflict, and its performance in the war, stating, quote, "The exploits of the attack fighter squadrons in the war in Southeast Asia are well documented, and they are heroic. The F-102 squadrons, based at Clark Air Base, quietly and effectively carried out a unique combat mission that was vital to the success of the air war. They provided an air defense shield around the entire battle area, while giving excellent protection to the B-52 Arclight missions. We will never know what attacks on our forces and bases were deterred by their presence." In 1968, Convair's Delta Dagger began to be phased out of active combat service in Vietnam, making space for newer aircraft like the F-4 Phantom II. In the early 1970s, 6 models were turned into target drones, renamed QF-102A and later the PQM-102 series, to simulate MiG-21s for training. This began a program where hundreds of F-102s were repurposed for use as target drone fighters, as well as the testing of the U.S. Army's Patriot missile system. The type was also exported overseas to both Turkey and Greece, experiencing combat missions during the 1974 Turkish invasion of Cyprus. While there have been numerous claims of air combat between Greek F-5s and the Turkish Delta Daggers, both sides deny losses. The last used Convair Deuce, a PQM-102 drone, was expended in 1986, precisely 30 years after its introduction to service.